we're going to spend a few minutes talking about managing your time during the ACT exam. Now, understand that time management is absolutely crucial on the ACT. Now, just like a coach manages the game clock during, say, a football game or a basketball game, you also need to manage the clock while you're taking the ACT exam. Now, I have helped a lot of students over the years prepare for the ACT exam. And believe it or not, very, very few of those students have actually finished all of the questions on every subject exam in the ACT. You're simply not given enough time. So, you need to be very careful with how much time you spend on each question on each subject exam. So in this lesson, we're going to spend some time reviewing several key time management strategies that you need to keep in mind while you're taking the ACT exam. Let's start with number one. The very first thing that you need to remember is the fact that every question on the ACT exam is weighted the same. Yes, you heard me right. Every question on the ACT is weighted the same. They're all worth the same number of points, and this actually surprises a lot of students. They assume that a really difficult question must be worth way more points than some easy question. Guess what? It isn't. This isn't true. On the ACT exam, a wicked hard math question, for example, is worth exactly the same number of points as a super easy math question. What does this mean? It means you should not waste a lot of time on a super hard question. And this is a very common mistake that students make. For example, they may spend 7 or 8 minutes working through some really hard brain buster question, and as a result, leave insufficient time for the rest of the questions on the exam. There is no benefit to doing this. In fact, it's kind of a dumb thing to do. Don't do it. Remember, with most of the subject exams, you only get between 30 and 60 seconds to answer each question. So, what do you do if you hit a really hard question that you don't know how to answer right away? What do? You skip it immediately and go on to the other questions that you are able to answer quickly. Once they're done, then you can come back and tackle that hard question if you have any time left over. Remember, the English exam has 75 questions, but you only get 45 minutes to complete that part of the ACT, which means you have a maximum of about 36 seconds per question. Now, the math exam is a little more generous. You have 60 questions to answer, and you get 60 minutes to complete it. And because I'm such a genius at math, I know that is 1 minute per question. Likewise, on the reading exam, there are 40 questions, and you get 35 minutes to answer those 40 questions, which means you get about 52 seconds per question. And the same is true of the science exam. The science exam has 40 questions, and it's 35 minutes long, so you also get 52 seconds per question on the science exam. And as you can see here, if you take the optional writing exam, there's only one question, but it takes a long time. You have 40 minutes to answer that one question on the writing exam. Now, in reality, the easier items on each subject exam will probably take a lot less time than we just talked about, while the more difficult items on each subject exam will probably take a little bit longer. The key point is that your average time per question should fit within these time frames that we just talked about. Now, this brings us to the second time management strategy that you should keep in mind while you're taking the ACT exam, and that is this: don't waste time reading the exam directions for each subject exam. You're probably scratching your head right now going, that's a kind of dumb. Hello? I know this sounds like a dumb thing to say, but it's true. Why? Because every minute that you spend reading through the instructions during the exam is a minute you no longer have for answering questions. And remember, there just isn't enough time for most students to answer all the questions. Every minute is sacred. So instead, I recommend that you memorize the directions for each subject exam long before you get to the testing center on exam day. To do this, go get copies of retired ACT exams and thoroughly study the directions for each exam. An example of the instructions from a recent version of the English exam is shown here. You should be so familiar with these directions that you don't actually need to read them when you get to the testing center on exam day. You can quickly look over and say, yep, nothing's changed, and go right on to answering questions. That way, the time that you would have spent reading through these instructions can instead be spent working on exam questions. And by the way, the Real ACT Exam book is an excellent resource for doing just this. This book contains several retired ACT exams that you can use to prepare for the current ACT exam, and you can also use it to memorize those directions. And as you can see here, you can purchase this book from Amazon.com at a reasonable price.
it.